Okay, this is where I kind of left off last class. And let's review a little bit. Now, you don't have to put a portrait in your thing. I just did that to add some artwork. You know, you don't have to put a portrait in. It's not a requirement. It's just something I wanted to add, okay? Plus, I wanted to show you how to do a word wrap. So let's talk a little bit about crazy shapes for the word wrap. If you're having problems doing a word wrap, okay, and what I mean by that is sometimes you have a crazy shape, and so let's say I had a crazy shape like that, whatever, and I want to do a word wrap, and it's just not working, something's not happening. What you can do is you can use a invisible object to do the word wrap, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're having problems making a word wrap happen, you know, for some reason there's a problem with the object, or it's a bitmap image, or something's just not working for you, and I've seen it before, what you can do is you could just use your tool, let's say the pen tool, with no fill and no stroke. Oops, I had something selected there. Uh-oh. 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 Hold on. I want to turn off the background anyways. Hold on. There we go. And then let me get up to this layer. Where's the text? It's this one right here. So it has to be in this layer. So again, if you have a crazy shape and your word wrap is not working and you're struggling with it, one way to do it is just to make an invisible object. So I'm going to use the pen tool, and I can, with no fill or no stroke, I can make an invisible object that goes in the area of where I want to do the word wrap. So it's in the same area that I want to do the word wrap. Notice how it's selected and my text is selected. So again, this is an invisible object. It's not even has no fill, has no stroke. It's an invisible object. And then I can go under my object, text wrap, make, and it will wrap around the invisible object. Okay, so if you're struggling, you know, because sometimes the shapes that you're trying to wrap around just aren't correct. You know, maybe they're not, you know, maybe there's something wrong with it. Okay, and it just, I don't know, for some reason you're having troubles doing the word wrap. Probably the easiest way is to make a shape that kind of fits the mold or the shape that you want to do it, and then just word wrap around that invisible object, and hey, it works. Okay. The other thing to be careful of when you're doing word wrap is this. Notice how my shape is too small, and so it's stuck a letter over here on this side, right? Because my shape was too small. So it wraps on all sides of whatever shape you use. So try to avoid that. Again, easy way if you're struggling, make an invisible object that's the kind of shape you want and do it that way. Any questions about that? Okay. I guess I deleted it. Oh, here it is. It's my invisible object. Remember, it should be bigger than 8.5 by 11, right? You want to do larger size. So what I wanted to talk about briefly to finish this is to put some decorations around my object. What is a decoration? If you go under Windows and go to your symbols, oops, Windows symbols. Where's my symbol? Oh, here they are, symbols. In the symbols option, there's a variety. Remember we were using symbols at the very beginning of class when we did the landscape, and I said, hey, we can put grass on there. Remember doing the grass and then doing that? Well, also inside of symbols, they have other ones in there. If you go underneath the pop-up window in the upper right corner of the symbols window, if you go to Open Symbols Library, you have a variety of other things inside there. Okay, some of them are used to add things and not necessarily just an object. Let me see, which one do I want to add? I wanted to do, no, maybe it wasn't symbols. Let's go to brushes. What I wanted to show was under brushes. Yeah. It's actually a brush is what I'm trying to say, not a symbol, a brush. And underneath brushes, I want to do decorative. That's it. So underneath brushes, sorry, is decorative banners and seals, decorative scatters, decorative text dividers, elegant curls, and floral brush sets. Those are the things I was thinking of. So not under symbols, under brushes. And here they are. So these are kind of flowy things that you can add to your object. Okay. So how could we use them? Okay. So these are like you could draw a line and apply the brush to it. That's one way of using it. You can drag it from here out here, and you can see it. And you can use it as a decorative piece. Because think, my time frame that I'm doing this, right, is the late 1900s or 1800s, right, early 1900s. A lot of decorative things like this were in publishing, right? So again, you could grab these and drag them out, or you can actually use the brush and paint them onto the screen because they are a brush. I tend to drag them out and use them, so this is kind of a nice sort of little flowery add-on. I didn't want that one though. There is another one I wanted to use. Again, you can use these as decorative elements within your document. You can use a line, I believe. Let me see if this works. A line, and then apply the brush to that line. Let me see. Can I do that? That did it for that. That's not what I wanted. I wanted it on the line. No, that didn't work. Maybe if I do a rectangle. Hold on, let me do a rectangle. Rectangle. And then apply the brush to the rectangle. There we go. That's what I wanted. Whew. So it works for a rectangle. It's a stroke. So these kind of these brushes will follow the stroke. So this is what I was trying to show you. No, of course my edges aren't big enough for this one. But there was that one. Let's try another one. So again, I have a rectangle. Let's see another one. Got our hearts. Dotted lines. That didn't seem to work very well. Let's try this one. Oh, just the edges there. Let me try another one. Oh, these like little city. Look at that. That's cute. There we go. So there's a whole bunch of different ones in there. I chose what? Elegant curl and floral brush. What's another one? Oh, that was under brushes. Brushes. Open brush library. Decorative. It's under decorative and decorative scatter. Banners and seals. Let's see. Oh, okay, these are banners. Yeah. Whoosh. Those are pretty ugly. Let's see. Decorative scatter. Oh, that's pretty ugly too. Decorative text dividers. Well, let's see this one. And that didn't work very well, did it? These ones look better. So all I'm going to do is add kind of like let me just grab let's do this one at the top. We're going to put this one at the top, and then I'm going to put this one at the bottom. I'm going to rotate it just for decoration. Make sure they're aligned. So how you line things up, of course, if you haven't really used the alignment feature inside of Illustrator, it's the greatest thing ever. It's under Window, Align right here, Window, Align. This option allows you to do things, and 2 weeks from now we'll be using this a lot more. So if I want to make sure that this is aligned to this, we can select both of them, and you can say Object Align, Horizontal Align, and it'll make sure that they're lined up perfectly. You can also align to the page itself. There should be an option over here. There should be more Show Options. Show Options. And so when you show options, there's an Align to right here pops up, and you can say Align to the artboard. So if you want to make sure whatever you're doing is exactly in the center of the artboard, you can actually do that using the alignment feature. I don't know if I showed you that yet, but that was this one. So you can say align to key object, align to artboard, and so on. There's different ways to align. Let me move that over a little bit. Okay, so I got my elegant top and bottom. I got my Toulouse-Lautrec here. Again, I turned the background off while I was working so that I don't have to deal with it rendering that background all the time. That takes time. Okay, let me bring my background back. Here we go. And then let me delete the things I needed to delete in here. Remember, if you double click on an object, it goes into this object making mode. Object making mode. Where did this object making mode come from? Well, when Adobe bought Macromedia back in 2002 or 2003, they wanted to get Flash. I mean, basically Adobe wanted Flash because Flash was a very important technology back then. But what they did was they introduced some of the capabilities of Flash into Illustrator, and this is one of them, where when you double click on an object, it goes into what we call isolation mode. Notice in the upper corner up here, you'll see Layer 1 Portrait, right? Do you see that? And then there's an arrow that goes back here. Notice how everything kind of grays out, and you have the piece you're working on is in, you know, solid. And that comes from, like I said, they kind of took this idea from Flash because that's what Flash would do. You could have isolation modes in Flash. And they introduced it here. It gets really confusing because some people, when they're working in Illustrator, they say, oh, you know, you're working on something and you didn't realize you were in the isolation mode. You probably have done that before, right? Okay, so just be careful of it. It works good because you can then, you know, work on something without, you know, interfering with other things. That's a good thing because, look, I can't click on the stuff behind here. I'm only working on this one object. So that helps a little bit in some sense, but it also can be confusing when you're trying to do something. I need to delete these white spaces. I think that's all of them. Is that all of them? Okay. When you're done with your isolation mode, you click on your arrow to go back. And now I'm back to normal. Well, I'm still missing a couple pieces. That's all right. Okay, let's talk about some of the things you can do to make sure you print it properly. Right? Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, when you go and have something printed, what are some of the problems? Well, probably the number one problem is font. Okay, you're using a crazy font that the printer people don't have. So giving them an Illustrator file is probably not the best thing because Illustrator is going to want to look and use the font that you used. So there's two ways to get around the font problem. One of them, of course, is using a PDF, but sometimes PDFs also have problems. You wouldn't believe it, but they do. The other is to convert all the text into an object. If you remember, the option to do that is called Trace Outlines. So I'll show you what I mean. But you can't alter it. So what I would do is probably save my object, save normal, Illustrator file, working file, hey, Illustrator file, working file. And I failed to talk about the initial letter in this assignment. Usually I talk about an initial letter, and we didn't do one, did we? Maybe we'll do one quick. Okay, what was an initial letter? Initial letter is usually where a big letter is at the beginning of an article, right? Wired magazine does it almost every one of theirs. They have a big character, a big letter that's like the lead into the article, right? That's what an initial letter is. You have a question? Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like some medieval text that you might see.
Exactly. Medieval text, right? All the original manuscripts and all the original Bibles, every, at the beginning of each page, they all had a very elegant letter that was well, rendered with things. Now you can find all those online. I used to go to a school in New York that had a whole bunch of old. They even had a Gutenberg Bible, I think, there. And the school I went to was called RIT, and it had the largest publishing graphic arts program in the whole United States. And then they had this library there called the Carey Collection. And you could go in there as a student, like I could go in there and I could look at all the old all the old Bibles from the medieval times. You can go in there. And you can actually look them up online. Here, let's see it. Here we go. It's online. You can go to Carey Collection. The Carey Collection. That's definitely not that one. How about we type in Carey Collection, R-I-T? How about that? There it is. Carey Graphic Arts Collection. How about that? At R-I-T. And so there you can actually see they got old printing presses. You can see all the old printing presses. They even had a gravure press there. Gravure press was one that would do it with round cylinders. It was instead of using plates like normal plates, they actually had a cylinder. Oh, weird. Let's see. Let's see an old manuscript from when. Here's some of the old manuscripts. Here's an initial letter. An illustration with the letter. Okay, so that comes from that. Very fun, interesting way of doing. Another place you can find lots of historical things, of course, is the archive.org, right? You want to look at old manuscripts, archive.org has a whole bunch of that stuff also. But the Carey Collection had some good examples. You can search by a date. You want to see something from the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. Paper making by hand in America. Ooh, interesting. And you can read the books. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe going this way. No. Okay, let's do one real quick. Get your beer, citizen. Okay, so let's say I wanted to start my article off right here. I have a W right here. So, one of the easiest ways to go about it is to take the letter and, of course, increase the size of it, right? But watch what happens, what problems you run into. Well, first of all, it has to push it. Oh, gosh, don't do that. There we go. First off, it starts pushing things around, right? Because it has to add to the height. Add to the height. And if you change the font, because usually you want to use an initial letter that maybe even has a different font. Maybe a scripty font. If I can find a scripty font. There we go. You can change the color. Maybe. Maybe give it a stroke. So there's a variety of things that you can do. I was putting the red in there because we have red up here. So kind of matching the way I did the letters up here. So, you know, that's one way of going out. If it's messing up your lines, though, another easy way to do it is to do an initial letter that's not even part of the line. Just delete that, put some space in there, right? Put some space in there. Of course, it doesn't have to be that size. It can be the same size as the other text. Put some space in there, and then make your own letter as a separate object. That's one way. You can go about, what's the letter I'm doing? We? W? No. Make it as a separate object. Then that way, it's not messing up your design. You can then scale it and do what you want with it. Okay, everything's starting to get too tight now. Uh-oh. So now I have some spacing problems now, right? There we go. How about that? Kind of cool. Initial letter at the beginning, something different. Makes it look a little bit more interesting. Yes? Okay. Everybody cool with that? Okay, let me move on. So again, I made an initial letter. Think about maybe doing that in your project. It's not a requirement. If you don't do initial letter, that's okay. I do want to see you do some text wrapping though, and draw in the artist style, and make a nice title. Okay, so I'm ready to go to my printer. I'm ready to go to the printing. I'm ready to go printing. So let me save my file again as Illustrator. Save it as an Illustrator file. You can also go and save as a PDF. I'm going to go under File, Save As. You can change it to PDF right here. Saving as a PDF, though, may have some problems also. Usually when you're saving for the PDF, it saves kind of a lower version of Acrobat, which is okay. One of the problems that PDF used to have, and they tried to fix in the more later versions of Acrobat, is the blending. Remember how you could have opacity on an object, right? And it would blend with another object underneath it. And so sometimes making a PDF has problems with that. So some suggestions that Adobe has made is that you should rasterize and convert those objects that are blended together using an opacity and rasterize it into a bitmap before you print it. That was one of the solutions to the problem with Acrobat printing blends properly. Do you know what I'm trying to say? In that if you have an object, and I'll get back to PDF in a moment, if you're using, let's say, under transparency, right? Under transparency, and you say, okay, I'm gonna have it down 60%. Okay, and you got this beautiful transparency there. The background is blending through. What would happen inside of Illustrator is when you made it into a PDF, it wouldn't blend properly. It might not be 50%, 60% in this case. It would be like 80%. So it struggled with being able to recreate that in the PDF when you make a PDF document. So if you have those problems doing that, Adobe's suggestion is that you take your object that you use the opacity on and convert it into a bitmap. How you do that inside of Illustrator is by using the object rasterize. What rasterize does is it takes the object that you have selected, in this case I have this title selected, and it converts it into a bitmap. Okay, so now it'll be like something you have in Photoshop with pixels. But in doing so, you avoid maybe the blending problem that it was having. So if you hit rasterize right there, it's going to ask you what PPI, what's the resolution now? Because remember, when we're making objects, there's no resolution. But now you're rasterizing, converting it into a bitmap. Now it's going to ask you, hey, how many dots per inch you want, right? That's what the PPI is, pixels per inch. The default is 300. Hey, let's go with the default. Boom. Uh-oh, now look what happened. They put a white background on it because it's a bitmap. So it's not the best solution all the time. To avoid that, you would probably do each individual letter as a separate. That's what I would do. Maybe that might fix that problem. Oh. There's a lot of problems with this title. Let me not go there. I'm just pointing things out. So saving as a PDF. Usually I use the default. If I was going to save this as a PDF, some of the settings, I leave the compression alone. The only time I add compression to my PDF is if I'm having problems getting it to be a certain size. Okay, so in the PDF settings, you have a general setting right there. You have compression right there. Again, I tend not to compress the images. See how it says do not downsample, do not downsample, do not downsample. I've had some students working on helping a business, and in that business, the woman who ran the business liked to send out PDF files of her products. And the problem when she emails them, of course, is that you have the 20 megabyte limit usually in a free email program, right? And the people getting it on the other side, they might be limited too. So she was always having problems trying to make her PDF small enough. So the only way I was able to help her make her PDF small enough was we would go inside here and compress the images. That's one way of going about it. The other way is to turn off the create Acrobat layers from top level layers. So hold on, preserve Illustrator editing capabilities. If you turn that off, your Acrobat will be a lot smaller. The problem is you won't be able to open it in Illustrator and make changes to it. But if you uncheck this box right here, preserve Illustrator editing capabilities, your PDF will be a third of what it was. Because what Acrobat's doing and what Illustrator's doing when it's saving this as a PDF, it's keeping all the Illustrator layers separately. So you can open it back up in Illustrator and change it. Well, in this case, if you uncheck this, it just kind of flattens it all out and it makes it smaller. The problem is you can't edit it in Illustrator again. So I don't know. You do it to a backup, but by doing that, saved a lot of space too. So those are two space-saving capabilities. One is turn this off. The other is the compression. I don't have any bleeds and marks. These are marks and edges that go around the edge that help you trim. Not for this one. I'm not going to do that. Color conversion, no. Advanced settings, I don't know. Security, do you want to have a password for your file? And that's about it. So, which version do I use? I don't know. I just, standard here, I didn't say none there. Sometimes what I use as far as the Adobe PDF presets, I like to use the high quality print. See this option right here? High quality print right here. I've used that before. And then I hit save. And it's going to go do its thing to make a PDF. Again, if you're having a lot of printing problems, as far as fonts are concerned, what you could do is turn all the fonts into objects. How do I do that? Well, if you select everything, you can go underneath the type option and say create outlines right here. So right here under create outlines, under type create outlines, what it'll do is it'll take all the letters and convert them into objects. Now you won't be able to edit them anymore, but you definitely won't have any font problems now because they're no longer fonts, they're objects. Okay, so if you have problems with fonts, the best thing to do is create outlines right here. So all the objects now, all the text now is an object. It's still a vector, it's a vector object, so it'll print nice. But there. Then if you're really having problems printing, even after you convert to this and stuff like that, what Gene's suggestion is to save it as a JPEG. So if you're having problems printing, save it as a JPEG and print it as a JPEG. That should print. It's going to be a bitmap, but hey. The create outlines probably might be a good one. Save it as a PDF. Take it to the place. Where can I go? Most of the students go to the, at least the ones I know, go to the one in Los Gatos. What's it called? Where you ship stuff. What's the shipping place?
FedEx.
Is it FedEx? Yeah, Kinko's or FedEx. FedEx in Los Gatos. Yeah, FedEx office and printing. I think it's like $3, maybe to print something that's tabloid. Remember I made this as tabloid, 11 by 17. The other problem that you're going to run into is I went all the way to the edge. It needs to have a little rim around there. Okay, so you might need to shrink your object down a little bit, or let them shrink it down. It will scale it a little bit, but there's going to be a 1/4 inch white all the way around. The printer won't go all the way to the edge. You can trim it off when you do your trimming if you want. Okay, but it's not going to go all the way to the edge. Be aware. It's not going to be exactly 11 by 17. Yes. Yeah, you can buy the board there too. Get yourself a black board or a colored board if you want. If you want something that's colored, depends on your. I've had some good ones that had colored backgrounds before. Not everything has to be on black. Look at this one. It's a colored board. I think I'm going to use contrast now. It says in contrast is very well with that. But, oh, green. Look at this one. Green. Okay. So you think you have enough knowledge to do this? I'm ready to move on to something new. Yes, you have a question there, Samuel? No, you okay? You have enough knowledge to make this happen? You can print it out for me? Okay, comment a print out by next Monday. We'll have critique up here. Clap. Don't get mad and critique if I say certain things. We're only here to make suggestions to make your life better. I want you to be a happy life. I'm going to move on to the icon now for your phone. I'm going to move on to a new assignment. You can work on this all week. If you don't finish, I know you're busy. I'm going to show you how to make an icon for your phone. If you don't do it this week, that's okay. I want you to finish your artist statement, okay? That's what I want. So what I'm showing you today, if you don't get to next week, that's fine.